For marketing teams, getting their ad spend data in the analytics data set is an essential step. It comes pretty quickly. If marketing teams usually analyze their campaign performance, this is the core data need that they have. So they want to understand, okay, where were people coming from when they arrive on the website or within the app, which campaigns were driving these people on the website. Then they want to understand how they convert. They even want to understand, let's say, 2 or 3 steps in between. So they have, let's say, a very straight funnel to understand that. This is great. This is something where you can make a marketing team already significantly happy. But the next question that comes afterwards is like, how efficient are these kind of campaigns? And there are different aspects how you can measure efficiency of marketing campaigns. And this video here is not meant to go into this kind of details, but there's definitely one level which is important, which always will be analyzed, and this is the cost to revenue efficiency. At some point, the return on invest, but until we get to return on invest, it's a long journey, so we take some steps before that can already indicate the immediate performance of a campaign when it comes to revenue and comparison to what this campaign has cost. And cost is the essential item here we are talking about. So we need cost data in our analytical data set. And this is what we want to do today. So today we want to enrich our data set that we already have, that marketing is already working with and is quite happy. We want to enrich with ad spend data. We want to get the different kind of cost items that we already have, that right now we pull all data from all the different kind of systems, bring it together in a spreadsheet, and then calculate everything from there. It's not really making anyone happy, this kind of solutions. Now we bring it into Mixpanel and we combine all this so that marketing can now really run their analysis on ad spend on the different kind of campaigns. Yeah, so let's do that. This video is sponsored by Mixpanel. Mixpanel has a new way to do product analytics with your warehouse data. You can connect Mixpanel to your data warehouse, and then you can run all the product analytics investigations and all the product analytics deep dives on top of your data warehouse data with clean, prepared, and high quality data. Check out the link in the description to learn more about the offering. I'm using it and I'm extremely happy to have this new kind of setup for product analytics because it unlocks so many more use cases on top of much better data than before. Okay, let's start about campaign reporting. Campaign reporting is the essential thing for marketing teams because the different kind of campaigns that they are running, are they actually performing well against the targets and conversions? Because this helps them to shift budgets between different kind of campaigns. This is an essential tool for marketing teams to review often already on a weekly basis to see which kind of campaigns maybe can get some more budget because like they're performing really well, or maybe some campaigns who need some work. So also like to really see, okay, where they maybe really have to investigate to understand if it's still worth to put some money into this campaign or not. And to achieve an advanced campaign reporting, we usually need some building blocks. Naturally, we need some information about the different kind of campaigns. For that, we need to have UTM parameters in place. So this is not the intention of this whole session to talk about UTM parameters, but let's assume you have made your marketing team aware of that wherever they place a link, they put a UTM parameter in there. And they think a little bit about it, how this UTM parameters should be structured so that it's not the campaign name is campaign number 1 or so on, that you have a clear structure and so on. So usually can really work really well together with a marketing team to come up with a structure, how to name them. You can even develop a link builder for them. So there are different kind of ways. But the most important thing is that what we need to talk about anything in campaign reporting is we need UTM parameters. And you will see later throughout this video why this is so important, because this is the glue that brings everything together. What we also want to build is, so where I want to go, and this is like why I'm starting to build something like this, is when I create a campaign report, it's usually like a dynamic, interactive table that shows the campaign performance for a specific kind of time period. Why is it a table? Just because you usually run 20, 30, 40, 50 different kind of campaigns. So you often have a lot of different kind of campaigns. It's really hard to put them, let's say, in a classic visualization, to use bar charts or something else, because on the one hand, you want to really quickly scan through all the different kind of campaigns. You want to check for all the campaigns your core metrics, how they perform. And this can be 5 to 10 different kind of metrics that you want to check. And because you have different kind of angles, how you want to analyze a campaign. Yes, naturally you want to know how much revenue does this campaign bring, but it might be also worth to then check, okay, how much traffic do they actually generate? How do they maybe perform in the mid of the funnel? So maybe they are quite good there, but then they lose afterwards. To get insights into where you should start to optimize. And these are usually wider tables that I use. And so these tables then have information about, let's say, core metrics, like the kind of sessions or visits. It creates then naturally also then mid-funnel events. And naturally also in the end also conversions. So we're interested in conversions, and of course if we can we also want to get the revenue in there. And so this is something that we want to create. And then let's say the advanced part, so we were talking about advanced campaign reporting, is we want to get the cost data in there. We want to get the ad spend data in there, because with this, we can then start to use metrics like ROAS, which is return on ad spend, which in the end helps us a lot more to at least analyze on the short term goal if these campaigns show the promise of being profitable. Just shortly about return on ad spend, it's a really good metric. But as every metric, it has its limitations. Return on ad spend doesn't tell you anything about customer lifetime value. So return on ad spend really goes for immediate revenue compared to the ad spend that you had to put in to generate this kind of revenue. There are a ton of business models where, for example, it takes longer, maybe it takes 2 or 3 orders to reach profitability with your customers. And it would be not beneficial for your company to optimize on the first order. And so ROAS is a first good indicator, but at least a good metric set in the future. Also need other kind of levels where you incorporate customer lifetime value. We will not do this today, but all the building blocks that we put in here, they can be extended to at some point also have a level of customer lifetime value that you compare with your customer acquisition cost, and then create a metric based on that really looks into revenue retention and so on. What we built here is it's a good campaign report that marketing already can start with, but it's definitely not the end. So there are definitely upgrade levels on top of that. But what I want to show you today in this kind of video is like where you can already get to this kind of level. And if you understand how you get there, then it's pretty easy for you to also see, okay, how you can add your next steps. Enough showing something on the whiteboard, so I think it's actually really time that we build something. Let's head over to Mixpanel. What we're looking at here, just to give you a quick view on that, it's like we are looking into a data set, which is a classic e-commerce data set. As you can see here, classic e-commerce events, we have checkout events, we have cart events, we have order events, we have product events, so everything that you would expect in a classic e-commerce store. And we can definitely already get started to create our first version of our campaign reporting. And so to do that is like we go into Insights, and let's say we want to get started with sessions. So we have session started. So these are different ones. So just quickly on that. So session starts, session ends. These are Mixpanel events. When you add the SDK to your website and you track automatically all the page views and so on, this is tracked automatically. In our case, we have our own session started event because we wanted to have a little bit more control over it. But you can also just go with these two, or in the end, you could use this one, which is automatically generated. But I will use this one. And this gives me an overview over this kind of data set that we have here. And so as you can see here, so these are all the session started events. Next step would be like, because we want to do a campaign reporting, so we have to break it down by the campaign, because we are interested to see, let's say, the traffic that each of the campaigns are generating. We go in here and then we pick UTM campaign, which is the right one. And as you can see here, now we see all the different kind of campaigns for all the different kind of data. As you can already see, this kind of visualization, this is what I mean is, yeah, so if we just look on total sessions, that's fine. It definitely helps us, but this already is like super useless for any kind of work. So let's change the way how we show everything. So I switch to a table. As we can see here, now we have the campaigns and we have all the sessions started, so we can now really analyze the different kind of campaigns that we have and how much traffic they generate in the last 30 days. So a good start, but no marketing team would optimize their campaigns on that unless they are optimizing campaigns for just generating traffic, which they usually don't. So let's add something with more quality. So we can go for order submitted. This is already something where we can actually measure a success of a campaign. And here you can see order submitted, but we don't see any kind of numbers here. What's the problem? So the problem here is like this UTM campaign in the setup that we have is just tracked with the session started event. When you use the SDK, you should not run into this issue, because if you run the SDK on your website, it collects the UTM when a session is started and then provides it to all the other events. But it might be, for example, that you add some backend events to this. For example, I also have order confirmed, which is a backend event, which is just send once we confirm an order. And then naturally they don't use the SDK, they don't have the information. To make sure that in the end we can use the campaign across all the different kind of events, is we have to add a attribution model, which naturally already makes sense, because this is also like where we want to end up, to show all our different kind of metrics based on an attribution model. So how do we do this? So we take this away and then we create a new breakdown. So we go into computed and then we have attributed by. And then we go in here and then we pick UTM campaign again. And so this is like because we have the information about the cookie, about the identifier, about the custom ID, which in the end like submit the order. And so we can take this into account and we can map basically the UTM campaign information across all the different kind of events that we are looking at. And so we do this, and now we have some data. That's great. Just quickly on that, we go with a 30-day look back window. Again, it always comes down what kind of shop you have, how long it usually takes to adjust that. So I stick with the default here. And then what you also can see is I can choose different kind of attribution models within the metrics that I'm showing. And so this is, if you're coming from Google Analytics 4, this is something that you don't really see before, because in GA you can just select one attribution model for everything to basically see how the metrics behave, but you cannot really build a table on two. So what I could do is I could now add another session started event and can use first touch on there to really compare both next to each other. I can build a table which I have two attribution models showing to my marketing team how they behave. We will not do this today because like it might be a little bit too complex, but this is definitely something that you can do. And so it's pretty powerful just to have a quick look. So we have different kind of models, as you can see here, which we can choose, like first touch. Here we have linear, then we have U-shaped, J-shaped, and so on. We can even create a custom one where we have different kind of percentages between the different kind of touch points. Pretty powerful, but this one is not about attributions. We want to build a marketing report. Okay, session started, order submitted, great. But there's stuff happening in the middle, and maybe we want to know a little bit more about the middle as well. So at least we want to see if people actually really check out some products. So if product data is viewed, let's also move this here to add another metric. Great. So we have this, then maybe really extend. And what you can see is we are actually building a funnel here, but we are building a funnel in a table. So it makes it a lot easier for the marketing team to analyze it and to really understand how the campaign are performing across the different ways in the funnel. So we are looking for product add to cart. And I think from there we could be, this is fine. So you can see here, so this campaign is basically losing people on the way. So what we can then do is we can add some conversion metrics. Naturally, we would be interested in a total conversion. So let's do that. So we use a formula and then we say, okay, we're interested in, so to have order submitted, which is D. So in Mixpanel, if you create a formula, you always reference the index that you have here. So we have D and then we have A. And so if you want to see this as a percentage, and let's add this, and we will rename it in a second. It's like the convert, so total or we can call it CR. Here we are. Now we have the conversion rates here. This already gives us really good material already to analyze, because we can see we have some campaigns that are not convert so well, some are converting definitely a little bit better. And we could even, if the marketing team wants to know a little bit more, for example, they want to know, okay, how much, so for example, it could be like they want to really analyze how much they lose in the checkout, because there's product team also working on to improve everything. So we could add another conversion metric, and we could, for example, say, okay, we go from when someone has added something to the cart, we still have order submitted, then, but here now we take the cart event and we take this. Also, let's rename it. So this is CR cart to order. Okay, that's great. I think this definitely makes marketing already significantly happy. Doesn't really make a lot of people happy that we can see, okay, we are just getting 80% of people through someone adding to the cart, to the checkout. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement here. But now we want to get to return on ad spend. So far, we have nothing on this table that helps us with anything. We don't have the returns and we don't have the ad spend. Let's start with the return. So this one is more straightforward. So what we do is we need the revenue, and so where we can get the revenue, so we go into order submitted again, but this time we use it a little bit differently. So what we look into is, so we use aggregate property because we're interested in the revenue. So we want to sum it up. And then we can pick the property that is sent with the order submitted event, which is revenue, and we can just sum it up. Nice. So now we also have the revenue, which is perfect, so we can see what kind of revenue these different kind of campaigns are making. This is good, but as we told, we want to have return on ad spend. We have the return, we don't have the ad spend. And the ad spend is often the missing things in these kind of setups. I often see spreadsheets just created because the ad spend has to be added manually to some degree, because ad spend usually is in a different kind of system. So it is usually in your advertisement platform system like Google Ads or Meta Ads, or you might even have costs that are in any kind of platform. So you might run an influencer program where you pay different kind of budgets to influencers, and so these are costs that you cannot even pull from an advertisement platform. How can we do that? The nice thing is in Mixpanel I now have a way to sync up my ad spend data from my data warehouse into Mixpanel. So it might be already that our data team already is pulling the kind of information in the data warehouse. And so we just have to prepare it in the right way, and then we can sync it up regularly. Every night runs a job, syncs up the data. And so we always have fresh data in here to calculate all these things. And it's not super hard to do this kind of setup. So let's have a quick look how we can do this. What I did is, so I created so this, for example, is like Google Ads, how we can get the data. And so then what I did is, so I changed it a little bit that it fits better so that we can load it into. And when we have a quick preview, so we have the date. So this data naturally is not event data, because like we don't get event data from Google, but in the end, like we get it on a daily base. And so this is helpful for us and we can use it. Then we have the campaign name. And I told you about the UTM parameters and the matching and the glue. This is where the magic happens. So this campaign name that we get from Google Ads naturally has to match what we have in the UTM campaign parameter, because then Mixpanel can bring both together. And so this is why we need it. We have a lot of information. We will not need everything. So for example, we will not really go down on ad level in this kind of implementation, but it's definitely possible to do that. If you use an UTM parameter to also add the ad name to your link, then of course you can match it on ad level. So it's not a problem to do this. But what we're really interested in is the span, the clicks, and impressions. So these are the metrics we want to see in Mixpanel. So we have it now in our table here in BigQuery. We want to sync it up now into Mixpanel. So how can we do that? If you watch videos before where I did data warehouse integration, so you might already can recount maybe in your sleep what you can do. At least I can do it now in my sleep, but if you don't, watch the other videos that I did so far with data warehouse integration. So we go into project settings. Then we have these two areas down here, warehouse sources. So as you can see already here, I've created the Deep Sky Data BigQuery source. So where I have the table that you just saw here. Creating a source is pretty straightforward. If you add a new connection, for example, for BigQuery, it's like you just have to run 2 commands here in the Cloud Console, which in the end grants Mixpanel permission to access your data in BigQuery. That's it. Will not take you long to do that. And so then we can create our connection. So as you can already see, for example, we get our events mostly from the backend, and then we collect it in the data warehouse, and we sync it up already in Mixpanel. It's not even like that we collect it with the classic SDK. We get the data via different ways, and we bring it all into Mixpanel. So what we now want to bring is we want to bring the ad spend. The big first question is, here is no ad spend table, so what should we pick? So we pick event table, we will find the ad spend there. So we go for source, then pick the source that we already created, then we have to find the right data set. So I have it in here, and then we have to find the right table. This is Google Ads import. And then it loads everything, and then we also get a preview, which makes it easier for us to match things. So the first thing that we have to choose is we have to tell, okay, we're actually not interested in event data, we're actually interested in ad spend data. You can switch this from default event to ad spend. As you can see here, everything changes with that. For example, we will have an event name ad spend, and then event time, we pick date and day, which we have here. You can already see what we have. Then we can pick ad platform. This one we have. Ad platform we have here, Google Ads. And then we just use the UTM campaign because I don't really use the other UTM parameters. We can match this up with our campaign name. And that's it. No. Not true. And then naturally we have to assign the costs and the clicks and the impressions. And as you can see here with the $sign, so this is like a reserved property that Mixpanel is using. And so we are mapping our column that we have in our table to this kind of property. And so let's see, where we have the cost. We have a spend, then clicks, and impressions. In the end, what we now do is we bring this as additional information into the system, and Mixpanel makes sure that they map based on the UTM campaign. They will map it to the existing UTM campaign information, and we will then have the spend, the clicks, and the impression in there. We have different kind of sync modes as always. So if I would run this now in full production, I would use append, and then append means we have a job that updates the table every night, and after that we run, Mixpanel runs its sync to sync up the data into Mixpanel, and it just takes the new created data. So usually 1 or 2 rows, or maybe 20 rows, depending on how many campaigns you're running on a daily basis. So if you run it in production, and so you update it every night, definitely go for append. For this purpose of the demonstration, I go for one time because I just needed to upload it one time. And so let's just create it. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Also, like to prepare the data here in BigQuery, if you already have a Google Ads integration, so then this kind of data you already have. So you just have to bring it together in this kind of format, in this kind of table. If you have a data team or some analysts, they can definitely create this for you. And they just have to make sure that this data always gets updated in this new table. So that's it. So we already have our backfill ready because there's not so much data. So it took us 5 seconds to get everything in there. And now we should be able to add our ad spend to our report. We are back in our table where we already have our revenue. This is something that we definitely should also label like this. So we have the revenue. And now we want to add the ad spend. Okay, so we go in here. It's basically the same as we did before. So we pick the ad spend. It cannot work on unique users because the ad spend is not on user base. So it's like we aggregate just properties. So we have to do the same thing what we did for the revenue. So we go into sum, and then we are interested in the costs. And now we have the ad spend. This enables us to create a return on ad spend, which will make it interesting for the marketing team. Because as we can already see, this doesn't look good for return on ad spend. So return on ad spend is basically, we take the revenue and we divide it by the ad spend here. Now we have our return on ad spend. And as we can already see here, like our marketing team definitely has a job to do when it comes to optimization. So return on ad spend starts to become good when we go across 1 here. So 1 means, let's say we have 1.1, means like, okay, then we have a positive return on our ad spend. So everything below 1 is basically an investment in the future. But as I said before, the return on ad spend has its limitation when it comes down to the customer relation and the customer lifetime. So in return on ad spend, there's no customer lifetime baked in. So it could be like that this kind of campaign is not performing very good on the first return that we get from these kind of users. But it might be when we analyze this campaign for revenue retention, it actually behaves pretty strong. So let's say that after the 3rd order, the customer is positive and we basically convert 50% of these customers to a 3rd order. And so in the end, if we look on a customer lifetime value, this campaign can be profitable for us. Again, ROAS gives us one indication on the first conversion, not on something that on the customer lifetime. But in the end, like this is a great start. So we can now, as an upgrade level later, we can incorporate something like customer lifetime value to give our marketing another level of insight. But this report in this kind of shape is already extremely helpful for any marketing team to do that. And this kind of report is super hard to build in any kind of analytics system so far. Often, like in the past, we then already pulled all the data in the data warehouse and was building just some dedicated reporting outside of the other tools that people were using, just because we had to combine all the different kind of data and it was not possible to do it in the tools. And here we can do it now, which really makes it extremely powerful to do that. And we can easily extend this. I just added the Google Ads data. What I could also do, like in the next steps, is so I have my influencers. So I could add the influencer costs. Then I have the Meta ad spend. And so I could add this as well. And so by that, I can extend everything in there to make the whole reporting a lot better. And especially like something like influencer costs is something that is often not really available in other kind of setups, but I can do the same thing here to then in the end just this to our setup. And so it works the same way as we did before. Quickly recap. We wanted to build an advanced campaign reporting where we include ad spend in Mixpanel. And step 1 for you, make sure that your marketing team is using UTM parameters, because as you could see here, the UTM parameter brings everything together. So we have the information in Mixpanel because the UTM parameter for the campaign is saved in Mixpanel. And then naturally, we also have the same information when we pull the data, for example, from Google Ads. And with this parameter value, we can bring it together. So we can then enrich the performance data of the campaign, which happens on our website with the ad spend data. UTM is the starting point. If the UTMs doesn't work, we don't even have to continue to do anything else. So then we can set up all the different kind of metrics as we showed, like we can show the sessions, we can show the mid-funnel, we can show the mid-funnel event, and also like we can calculate different kind of conversion rates. And then we can have final conversions, and naturally we can have the revenue. And then we bring in the ad spend by using the new data warehouse integration, where we have prepared already our Google Ads data and we can just sync it up into Mixpanel. With that, we can build a extremely powerful report for our marketing teams. I hope this motivates you to already start talking to your marketing team to say, hey, we have a new way to enrich your data now with the ad spend data and to build you really like better kind of reports that you can work on. If you run into some kind of problems during the setup, as always, let me know in the comments. If you like the video, and make sure that you subscribe so that you can see future videos about data warehouse integration into Mixpanel. See you in the next video.